So the other day I just finished out replacing some of the struts and I was working on some other things, but the wheels are off, so today I gotta put the wheels back on. I gotta load the car so I can drain the oil and drain the radiator fluid, just so I can pull those things out because I gotta pull them out anyway. And then that'll just give me easier access to the crank so I can take out all the torque bolts. We're going to start by taking out the battery and the battery tray. This is going to give us some more space so we can work on the engine. Make sure to remove all the throttle cables right up here, especially the one underneath. That goes all the way to the transmission. That way you won't tug when you pull it down. Since I was going to change out the radiator to the OEM one, I'm just going to pull that out so we can do that now and have some more space. But while I'm here, I'm also going to take out this engine cover as well as the steering stabilizer. In order to drain the radiator, there's a butterfly style drain plug on the driver's side on the bottom of the radiator. After it's drained for a while, you can go ahead and undo all the hoses that are attached. After doing all your hoses, there's two bolts holding the fan shroud to your radiator. Now go ahead and remove the 4 bolts on your fan clutch. If your belt isn't holding it tight enough, you can always use a pry bar to hold it still. There are 2 bolts on the alternator that you're going to have to back out. Doing this is going to allow the alternator to swivel and loosen your belt. There's a belt tensioner you're going to have to back up here. You're going to have to push it back pretty far before you fully take off this belt. Just like the other side, you're going to undo the tensioner and then you're going to undo the main bolt. This is going to allow it to also swivel. There's 2 mounting bolts holding on the radiator, and I found it far easier to remove the headlights to do so. You should find 4 bolts holding on the headlight housing, 2 up top, 1 on the bottom, and then there's going to be 1 right behind that corner light. And then you're going to find this 12mm bolt right here. It's going to be what's holding in the radiator. You can just back one out on each side and then you can pull it out. Go ahead and take off that driver's side front wheel, and there's going to be 2 nuts holding on the starter, as well as a ground wire, which is that big nub right there next to my knuckle, and then 1 plug. Now moving into the interior, we're gonna have to pull the center console out. There's 4 screws holding in this front console, and then there's gonna be 4 more 10mm bolts holding in the back console. Underneath the console, there's gonna be a bunch of plugs too. Make sure to unplug all of that so we can pull everything out easily. After you do all that, we're going to go underneath the car and undo some of the lever arms. First, you're going to take off this little nut right here holding it in. There's also going to be another one that's being held on by like a cotter pin, kind of more like a hair clip shape. Be careful, that pops off, and I was looking for it for like 15 minutes. And once you have those 2 off, you're going to pull off the center console a lot easier, and it's going to clear the way to drop the transmission. Then you're going to move behind the fender wall, right in front of the starter again. There's 2 vent lines coming from the transmission. I taped one side just so I can know which is the outer. You don't have to do that. It's just me trying to be a perfectionist. Once you pop that out, you're going to find 2 bolts holding the dipstick housing in. I only had 1, but you should have 2. Once you take those 2 out, it's going to be a lot easier for you to push the housing down than to pull up. I tried to do both, and pulling it down from the bottom was way easier. So you will need to drop your sway bar. There's 4 bolts holding it on. You can fully take it out if you want, but I found that this was sufficient. There is a brake line being attached to the driver's side, so be careful and make sure you take that off first. And you see me marking the diff before I pull them out. The front is going to be dropped completely, and the rear you can get away from only the transfer case side. I used a crowbar just to hold it still. Please be careful. There is a Zerk fitting in here that you can easily just not see and snap. So be careful if you do use a pry bar not to break anything. This part was super tedious. I wish I had someone to help me with. But in here is your torque converter, and there is 6 bolts holding them together. What you're gonna do is take off that little cover, which displays that hole right there, and you're gonna crank your engine clockwise until you see one, and you're just gonna undo it 6 times, and you kind of have to match it up. Go back and forth and make sure it's there. If you had a helper, they can tell you when it's there, or they can crank it for you. This was just so tedious for me. Once that's done, you're gonna have to remove this little exhaust bracket right here. You can just use a wrench. I use a 14mm wrench to pull these out. The manual calls for you to remove the exhaust completely, and I was not gonna do that. There's 2 transmission oil fittings. Make sure to undo these. If you don't, you will crack them when you drop your tranny. I had a scissor lift, just one of those Harbor Freight ones sitting around from when I did my Porsche transmission a few years ago. Very helpful, would highly recommend it. I'd actually recommend having 2. Looking back, that's probably what I'm going to do when I do our next one. Now you're going to remove this little transmission mount right here. Make sure you have another jack or another scissor lift, anything that's strong enough to hold it, because as soon as you unscrew it, as you see here, it's going to start coming down. And then I would start lowering it just slightly. In the back and the front, it's going to give you more space to get to the transmission bell housing. I forgot to do that, and it took me forever to try to get any bolts out, and then once I lowered it, it was an instant game changer. There's also a few more clips around the bell housing. Make sure to undo those before you drop it. Keep an eye out as you start lowering. It's gonna pinch if you don't. There's 2 clamps holding on this little oil line. Be sure to take that out. It's gonna give you a little bit more space, and make sure nothing gets yanked on the way down. The 2 hardest bolts to get for the transmission are the 2 up top. Once you lower it a little bit, it's going to give you so much space. I found using a few extensions and a long ratchet up top was the easiest way to get out. I also used a little cardboard, drew everything out for the order, but then I realized they were all the same size bolts. Here you see me switching the jack and the scissor lift the other way around. It was just easier to manipulate everything around. Alright, so I just put the transmission back in for this LX450 right here. Totally doable, but it is a trek. So if you are not that mechanically inclined, if you're just like a normal DIYer at home, this might be a little bit much. But if you're pretty confident in yourself, this is totally doable. Yeah, totally worth it.